Hello, my name's Tom Carhill. It's Monday, the 12th of May 2014. I want to do a quick video about a man who, surprisingly, a lot of people don't seem to know about, despite the fact there's been a big film being made about him recently. The name's Kinsey. He was a psychologist, psychologist, I forget which. But basically, it doesn't really matter. He was one of these perverts who's, like with Freud, but incredibly worse, was gifted with all these like amazing accolades and thought of as this great, clever expert. And in fact, he was just yet another Jewish pervert who was pursuing disgusting, criminal, perverted subversion. In this case, it was against the Americans, but all of his ideas were then used across the Western world and accepted for the basis of all, anything to do with psychology is accepted as fact. Now, a lady called Judith Weissman, she's done a book about him. I think it's called Kinsey's Paedophiles. Or maybe I'm getting this mixed up because there's also been some stuff on the TV about him. But this lady, she did a lot of very good work, basically just attacking all the things he did. And I'll explain why. I mean, one of the things that he did, and this is at the very thin end of the spectrum, is he'd say things like he'd have samples of people who he'd do interviews with. Now, he would normally use like prisoners and stuff like that, normally, for some of his research. So, for instance, he'd sort of find out that, obviously, if you've got people who've had hard lives and are in prison and they're, often psychiatric problems, stuff like that, they're going to come out with completely different answers to somebody who's balanced and normal. But then he would use that and he would make out as though that was the sample size for the whole of the population. The other thing he would do is he would get, instead of using people who've been incarcerated for, say, abusing children and using that as the basis of his paedophile research, what he was doing is he was actually using US government money to fund paedophiles in experiments where they'd basically go off, find children, abuse them, and then they'd come back, tell him all about it, and he'd give them a load of money. Now, the thing with this is so absolutely shocking and unbelievable to most people on about 10 levels, and there's these stratas of understanding which make it virtually impossible. You can't really get there without like a spark of genius hitting you. I don't really think a normal person can rationally get to where I got to without, it's almost like a sort of divine intervention or something. I don't really see how you can get there, because what it is look. But the first thing is this guy's work's all considered to be like a fact in all the textbooks. The sample size didn't work, so that's another one. It wasn't using the scientific method. He didn't even use an inconsistent scientific method. So all of that would throw a lot of scientists off, because they'd be saying, well, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. And of course, because they're academics, they think because he's another academic, he can't be doing anything wrong or dishonest, which is why most science is nonsense, as people who understand how the funding of that works. So they also can't believe that the government would be funding it. They can't believe that he would then publish this in a book, right? Because the thing is, sorry, I have to get onto the more important thing, is what he was doing, when these children were getting abused, he would then pay for this research, and he'd put it in a book. So you've got to remember that he's put this in a book, and he hasn't just said, oh, paedophiles say this, paedophiles say that, paedophiles say that, I'd put one up in a hotel because he came to stay with, it wasn't that kind of, it was literally over prolonged periods of time he was paying the money to do these studies. And this is where it gets more shocking, is what he was doing is he was paying them to like rape children and babies. So I don't just mean like a 15-year-old, I mean like a baby and stuff like that. People of all different ages, men and women, male and female victims. And what he would then do is he would put together these tables, right, of what he called like orgasms or time to orgasm. And what he basically prefaces and explains what it is. And this is actually a clue to where I'm going, because this is, as I said, it's quite deep, quite confusing. I'm quite amazed I came up with it. As I said, this is not something you come to with logic, because it's impossible for you to get your head around this logic. It's not normal. It's come through a series of factors all hitting me at the same time. And I was also speaking to another person when it did come to me. But anyway, he prefaces this orgasm that he talks about, which is when they sort of go into uncontrollable spasms and all this stuff, and he also mentions things like crying and that. But it's the spasms, the uncontrollable spasms, which is the interesting part. Now, again, I'm talking about these different layers, and each of these layers they all act in concert, and they've got multiplier effects on them. So each one of them makes it doubly or triply or quadruply or like factors of hundreds of thousands of times more difficult to get to. Right now, you think if you trying to stick something in something that doesn't fit, right? Yeah, and that orifice is going to hurt, and there's going to be all this crying and all this stuff. But if anybody's going to go into all of these orifices that are involved in these particular horribleness, all these horrible acts, right? They're all designed to stretch, right? So the idea that it's going to start off and it's going to hurt a lot, and there's going to be all sorts of problems from lacerations and the initial stretching and all that stuff and bruising and all that. The point with him is he'd actually have a time before this, what he called orgasm, which is explain what that means, which is all this uncontrollable spasms, right? He explains that this will happen within a certain amount of time, on average, between the children. So let's say, I haven't got it in front of me, I haven't even looked at it for a few years, but it said it came in my brain. You can look it up and you can test for yourself. What he was saying is he would say this orgasm in, say, like a 3-year-old or a 1 to 1.5-year-old would happen anywhere between 7 minutes in and 9 minutes in, and then might be repeated, and it would last for this amount of time. Yeah. Now, this is where something that never would have happened. It's a series of things came together. So of course you've got your normal person who just think that's disgusting. They just can't believe when they find out what he was doing. It's so unbelievable. And then you find out, as I said, about the funding, the fact that it's very, very difficult to get your head around it. And then you start thinking, if you start thinking of the nuts and bolts of it, which you don't want to do, but if you start thinking of the nuts and bolts of it, you start thinking, you might get to the thing and you think, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Children don't have orgasms when they're just being abused. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And that's not what an orgasm is. If they're sort of in pain and they're sort of getting some kind of severe trauma response. But then, I was lucky enough to find out about Satanism and how one of the big things with them, it's all about, like reaping horrible energy. So it's all about torturing people to attract beings in another dimension or forces in another dimension, whether that's what's happening or not. Now, we'll add an extra thing in here, and this has a double significance. He put together these tables, right? Now, just bear that in mind. Also, bear in mind, I've been a bit concerned recently about the massive amount of Satanists around, and I'm also convinced that they can actually cause sleep paralysis in people without necessarily meaning to do it. But the forces that they're dabbling can cause sleep paralysis, whether that's on a targeted victim or it's just malevolent, or let's just keep it scientific, unpleasant or adverse forces which they affect, which stay in the ether or whatever near where they've been doing their spells. And if you stay in a house or something where they've been doing it, it can have negative effects. So that be haunting or just be negative vibes that they've conjured up which stay there. But I definitely think it can cause what I'd consider aggravated sleep paralysis. And when I say aggravated, I mean it's not just sleep paralysis. It's paralysis when you can feel that somebody's or something is deliberately doing it to annoy you. Because I've had normal sleep paralysis, and I've had the one where I feel that somebody's doing it to annoy me and try and terrify me. But it doesn't terrify me because possibly it could do if they were like a more serious force. But anyway, that I digress. So I did understand that Satanism can cause this, but and because there's like a rise in Satanists, whenever you get involved with anything of any significance, you'll have Satanists trying to sabotage you or trying to coerce you into going down the wrong path. I realised that I need to find out more about them and what they believe, whether it be true or not. And also things like timings and stuff. Now, and I'd also been meaning for a while to learn about reading, things like astrology and stuff like that, just because I wanted to know, because you see, I know that a lot of people are fixated with it, just like numerology. A lot of people are fixated with it. It doesn't matter whether it happens or not. The first stage is, it's a bit like someone saying, "Oh, do you want to go and watch the football?" And you go, "It's for idiots. It's for idiots. It's for children." And like, hang on a minute. Have you ever seen football before? No, I've never seen it, but I know I don't want to watch it. It's the utmost ignorance. If you've got a population of people, however stupid they are, and however dumbed down and thick they are, you can't discount absolutely everything that they say all the time. Sometimes you've got to delve into it just to be able to write it off, if you want to look at it in a very negative sense. So just similar to something like numerology, you need to understand that lots of things in your life will be decided by numerology. Whether numerology exists, in inverted commas, or doesn't exist, other people think it does exist, and therefore they will do things with numerological significance. And this is the same with astrology. So I got somebody who knows about these things, and I explained what my concerns were, and they said, yeah, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do you a reading, and they explained to me how they do it and how you can actually do it free online. It's a lot quicker for them to do it because they knew all about it. And what they did is there's three things. Basically, they want your geographic location of where you were born. Some people say it's where you conceived, but again, because most people wouldn't have a clue about that and their parents wouldn't know anyway, it's not. And then it has to be the exact time as well, not just the date. It has to be the time. So it's when you're born. Well, that's what we're going on. But just bear with me for this, right? It's when you're born, up until the kind of 2:30 on the 27th of April, when the year I was born. That would be then. And then where I was born, which would be the town that I was born, because that would show where the stars and everything would have aligned at that time. And then, of course, there's what the exact time is now. So this apparent alignment, it doesn't seem to matter where you are for that purpose. It doesn't seem to matter where you are when you're getting the reading done. But it matters where you were born, exactly when you were born, and then what's happening now would all be related to the alignment of all the stars and all that. Anyway, I digress. But what gets thrown up is these little tables with all these little symbols on them and stuff like that, and it's kind of like cross-references at this particular time, and you could read, oh, I was there when I was here, and it's basically like little mathematical tables, very similar to stuff that you get in more advanced numerology, or, all sorts of other mathematical sciences which are recognised as science and aren't considered to be nonsense by most people. This is where it gets very interesting, right? I then thought back to Kinsey and his paedophiles, and I thought this weird thing about this timing till orgasms, but they're not orgasms, but these spasms, and the length of these spasms. And it occurred to me, right, he is a Jew, he is surely a Satanist, he's a pervert, he's obviously been promoted very highly, so you can presume he was a satanic Jew. He's had a cover film made about him with Liam Neeson. And Liam Neeson, as you might know, was in Schindler's List. So if he's not a Jew himself, and when I say Jew, I do mean the evil ones, not the ones who just don't get Christmas. What was it? That they have that feast after Christmas, and they eat bagels and go to a synagogue once in a while and bar mitzvahs and stuff. I'm talking about the evil ones, the synagogue of Satan, the children of the devil. I'm talking about the bad ones here, the Talmud readers who think it's all right to abuse children, because that links in. So he's a Jew. Undoubtedly, he'll be a Satanist. He'll be a Talmud reader. If you read the Talmud and you believe it and you think it's all right to abuse children and all the other stuff in there, you are a Satanist. Make no mistake about it. And of course, all the leading official Satanists like Anton LaVey, they were all Jews as well, weren't they? But the point is, if you link these two things together, you've got star charts, then you've got all that type of stuff that I didn't really know about. Then you've got satanic books of spells advising you about how to do spells, all this type of stuff. Then you've got his little books with these spasms. And you think, these things I'm absolutely convinced are linked. That's a book of spells. Right now, cleverly, again, with most of these people, they do everything as a double and triple and quadruple bluff, and often there's a lot of deception. And the deception sometimes even lies about the lies about the lies about the lies. They're full of contradictions. This is the sign that you're dealing with these very evil people. It's a sign that you're dealing with someone who's been reading the Talmud, right? Because everything in it is like evil and twisted. He's cleverly, and I use that word advisedly, hidden his book of spells under these layers of perversion. I believe it's called something like Human Behaviour of the Adult Male or Human Male. And then a few years later we did one about Human Behaviour of the Female Male, where he said that all women are lesbians and all. It's what Hitler would have called Jewish science. And of course, when you're in school, they teach you that when Hitler said that, he was a crank. So 2 and 2 didn't equal 2 because a Jew said it. That's absolute rubbish. It had nothing to do with, again, your average Jew. It had to do with these satanic arts that come from the Talmud, and they're all to do with manipulation and deception and evil. So they'd be things like horrible art, horrible horrible music, the atonal system, that type of stuff. Everything to like go underneath people's, you know, like get into people's heads and mess them around. As you're probably aware, as time goes by, the concept of things being supernatural or magic, you realise that there's no such thing. It's just something people didn't realise about. So when I talk here about things, I'm not talking about something that's against the scientific method. I'm absolutely convinced the whole concept of a scientific method is just a whole complete con anyway. I understand that when you're dealing with, say, like building a sort of 3-story building or something, you need to kind of keep it simple. Let's not get into complicated stuff. Let's not try and get people from the third dimension to help us lift the bricks in place. I mean, obviously, King Solomon sort of claims that that's what he did. So maybe it's a possibility. Maybe that's a bad example. But the point is that none of this is to do with magic. It might work, it might not work. Other people think it definitely works. The evildoers definitely do think it works. They do everything according to a game plan, and everything is down to this satanic underpinning. So don't go thinking I'm not going to go down that because it's supernatural or paranormal. It's not paranormal. It's not extra normal. That's what I think para means, doesn't it? It's not extra normal at all. If it works, it's just something you don't understand about, like times tables. Times tables, when you're, say, 3 and you don't know about them, they're not paranormal, are they? If your parents didn't understand them and you didn't understand them and they said, oh, they're paranormal, you'd think they were paranormal until you learnt them and you say, oh, I understand how it works now. But then, of course, there's a lot of that with the hidden things in the number and the numerology, like the 9 times table. You know, the way you can add up every single figure that's divisible by 9 in the 9 times table. If you add the 2 numbers together, it comes up with 9. So you've got 9, you've got 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. 81, what's that, 9 nines? 80, 81? Yeah, 81, 8 plus 1 is 9. The whole way up it goes. All the timetables and all that have been hidden, because once people understand that these mathematical backings and underpinnings to loads of these things, which people say are magic or hocus pocus or stuff, you'll actually realise for thousands of years they've had an actual mathematical way of proving numerous things which they've just completely hidden. So if you're in one of these weird cults, or if you're in the Freemasons at a high level when you're interested in the hidden sciences and stuff, or you're into the Kabbalah or one of these things, or you know, you're an evil Satanist, you'll know about all this stuff and other people don't know about it. So the initial thing is you juxtaposition his horrible book about perversion, which everybody thought was great at the time, or at least that was what the impression was. Everybody was clever, like The Emperor Wears No Clothes. If you're clever, you think it's a great book, and you understand it must be all true because it's science, even though if you read it, you quite clearly see it doesn't even stick to the stupid scientific method anyway. And then you've got to realise that most people just cannot imagine the sort of horribleness of this guy paying people to abuse children. And then you start thinking of the nuts and bolts of it, which most people don't want to do, and they just have to delve into it just to sort of consider it in a logical capacity to a point. Then you put into the fact, why on earth would he put these tables in? Obviously, you have to caveat that he wanted more state money, and if you presume he's a Satanist, he would want the more abuse of children. But the thing is, his underlying agenda was to promote, or his underlying, you know, pretend agenda, you know, his fallback position was to promote homosexuality, perversion, paedophilia, all sort of infidelity, the breakdown of the family. He was a very evil communist and a Jew, and you know, like a Jewish subversive, as all communists were. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to completely destroy everything. He wanted to destroy everything. That's what these people's aim is. And you just, it's too many levels. You add it all up, it's just too many levels to understand for most people. But when it hits you like a bolt of lightning, it all becomes clear. So I believe that book he wrote, I think it's called The Sexual Behaviour of the Human Male, that is got a book, contains in with it satanic books of spells, so that people can time the exact abuse of children with the exact positioning of the stars for satanic rituals. I'm absolutely convinced that's what it is. I believe it like I believe the sun will come up probably tomorrow. You know, obviously I'm here to be shot down, and it might turn out that I'm wrong. But my belief now, and it's a solid belief, it's not just a sort of like in the 3 stages of understanding, you know, like thinking something might be possible, thinking something's probably true, but not actually believing it and basing your decisions off it, and then there's believing it to be 100% true and basing all your future thinking off it. I jumped from not even knowing about it to the third one straight away. Now, whenever that happens, that jump in realization, that's always confirmation in my mind that it's, it doesn't just ring true, it rings like it's a fact. So, Kinsey, Satanism, books of spells. I'd like to know what you think about it, and I'd also like you to, if you're interested, look up the amount of satanic sacrifices that have been going on in in Uganda, right? There's been loads of them. Now, I'm not saying it's just in Uganda. Obviously, there's a lot of this, it's just the fucking monkeys in Africa who can't behave themselves and they do all this bad stuff. That's all just idiot racism. So what they do is actually publicise Satanism by showing you that blacks are doing it, and they just make out they're a load of monkeys. But at the same time, they know that most people won't think, well, hang on a minute, if these dozy blacks are doing it, why? Well, obviously the more clever, horrible ones if you go by this logic that they're all fucking savages. All of the people in the Western countries are really evil be doing it. Most people don't make that logical jump. They don't understand. Satanism is an international phenomenon. And the thing is that there's very few religions or mainstream religions that actually advocate it. Now, let's be fair to Jews here, right? You've got to remember that the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lamas before the latest CIA agent one, they did have like various documents come to light about them ordering like human skins and stuff. So like for black magic, it's in all cultures. Make no mistake about it. It's just the fact that in the Talmud it actually prescribes raping children, says it's good, says it's fine, even prescribes how old they should be, saying if it's is it a perverse connection, then you can get away with it with even more animals and humans than if it's a non-perverse connection. So the more perverted it is, the more you can get away with it. And there's been a few English news headlines recently where some children, like not very old, like say 13 or 12, have like raped their little sisters and stuff, or some friend of theirs at school or something. There's been a couple of ones where they've raped their sister. And what they've done is they've said, one of them's gone to prison for like 3 years, and then there's or 8 years or something. There's another who repeatedly raping his sister or something. Then there's another one who was also raping his sister, and his sister was even younger than the other one, I think. But he sort of said, I've been watching pornography. He's been watching all this horrible pornography, so they've given him a lesser sentence. So if you understand what the Talmud's about, and it's pure evil, and it's purely used to corrupt, you understand that whenever you see something that's so shocking you can't believe it, you have to don't try and deal with it straight away. Look back at it, try and look at the funny side of it, and just think, what on earth are they playing at? Because it's absolutely, it's in everything. So if you rape your little sister and you say you've been watching perverted porn, they'll say, oh right, well, that's the pornos then. But you see, what that's doing, this is another level to it, is that constant mention of people having sex with, like little children having sex with their little sisters and stuff, raping their little sisters, all of that stuff, whenever they mention that, that's normalising it. People have always done these sick things. There's always sickos and children who don't know what they're doing stupid things. It's always been happening. But then they just start reporting it like a cluster, like boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden, people start thinking about it and gets into their consciousness. It's a bit like the fact that they constantly talk about these paedophiles who've been having sex with 15-year-olds. But the whole point is, like, paedophiles, someone has sex with, like, a little kid who is prepubescent, right? And there's two other categories above it. I forget what they're called. But the fact is, it's unpleasant if some dirty actor gets some groupie and or somebody comes to go on their show and they start touching them up and basically shag them without them really wanting to go along with it. That's a world of difference between having sex with a baby or a 6-year-old, isn't it? Do you see what I mean? They're not in the same category. It's completely different. Obviously, we can't have droves of men, losers, going around trying to have sex with like sort of girls who are like only just able to reproduce on the grounds that they could potentially have babies, so therefore it's allowed. You can't have that. That would be absolutely terrible. It should definitely be imprisonable. But the whole point is, every single thing that happens now, is hidden under levels of perversion. So this book about Kinsey, you've got to realise, and no one will think this makes any sense at all unless they start getting into the groove of how it works, is they have hidden a book of satanic spells under the guise of the promotion of paedophilia. I know it's hard to understand, but that's exactly what it is. As I said, I'd like your comments. It's the 12th of May 2014. I'm Tom Carhill. You can get me on Skype on T0MCAHILL or on my message. This will be probably on Google Mail, so it'll be T00M Carhill CAHILL at gmail.com. You can get me on those addresses. Because I said, I'm very, very interested in this, and we need to hit this one. Like, a lot of people need to get sort of saturated awareness of this, because obviously I know loads of Satanists will know about it, but the point is, I'm absolutely convinced I'm right on this one, and what you need to do is get the message out like in a big hit, and then all of a sudden people will realise, because what we can't have is we can't have this drip of perversion and weirdness constantly every single day in the newspapers, because it just confuses people, it depresses them, it gets them down, and ultimately it doesn't get them anywhere. Because, I mean, apart from that Stuart Hall guy, I'm talking about England now, who's got sent down for having sex with little children or touching up little children, I forget. Almost all of these apparent celebrities who keep getting like let off. I mean, ultimately, look, take their actual victims out of the equation, because, you know, we're all a victim of it. You've got to remember what they're doing. It doesn't matter whether a couple of paedophiles get off. There's fucking millions of paedophiles everywhere, right? There's loads of perverts, and more worryingly, there's loads more potential perverts, because we're still not, or the normal public, and I'm one of them, I'd consider, you know what I mean? I don't really know exactly what causes it, what makes people break and turn that way. I know abuse has got a lot to do with it. The point is, we don't even really know. So you've got basically, don't think about it as like, say it's 1% of the population's paedophile. Look at it as like maybe 20% of the population are potentially corruptible, if they keep getting this saturation of paedophilia constantly put on them. You see, it's don't think of it as being, oh, those poor children. Obviously, that's a given. It's like when you're driving down the road in your car, the driving instructor said to me, don't worry about what's in front of you, because you know that that's wrong. You don't need to keep going, oh, but it's wrong. It's wasted airspace. Everybody who's normal agrees it's wrong, right? Worry about the things going on around the side, in the periphery. What is the bigger picture, you know? You know, like, it's like if you drive down the road just staring in front of you, you might miss a signpost, you might miss things going on around the side, it could cause an accident later down the road. This is the way you need to look at this. This is a bigger picture situation. Most people haven't got the mental equipment due to the fluoridation of the water, constant use of fluoride toothpaste and all the other poisons that are going into their brains. Most people have got no higher order thinking. But it's not about saturation of everybody, it's saturation of the important people. So let's say if 1,000 people see this video or become aware of it, and they think, my God, Kinsey and the paedophile thing is just a cover for even worse stuff. The job has been done. I've been in touch with that Judith Wiseman. She got back to me straight away. Yeah, I thought she'd been the type of person who would. Literally within hours, she got straight back to me. She said it was very interesting. And of course, her advantage is she is a Jew. So, like, if they start going, oh, you're just being nasty to Jews, she can go, well, I'm one. So you see, she's got more value, and it's like lots of these people. You will find this. And this is not me. This is not to be considered. To be confused, this sycophantic, oh, but I don't mean all Jews bullshit, because when like a Muslim does something wrong, they don't go, oh, a Muslim stabbed someone, but we don't mean all Muslims, but normally the Muslim hasn't stabbed anyone, they've just made the story up to demonise them. So you shouldn't get into this constantly justifying any Jew who's not a scumbag, or not totally brainwashed, or not just a totally selfish sycophant, right, will know that when you say, that they're all Jews, all those Satanists are all Jews in that particular town. A normal Jew who's got any brains about them, and you know, has got some level of breaking of the conditioning, because they are conditioned as well, by the way, they'll realise that you are talking about the bad ones. You don't have to keep saying it. You shouldn't keep saying it, because it's a very bad sign. But you see, the reason I'm mentioning this now isn't to preface what I'm saying. It's because lots of the people who see what they're up to are used to this thing about seeing Jews and knowing Jews. They can see Jews coming a mile away, even though there's all different types, and you know, it's a very hard to define thing. what a Jew is. And as well as that, you've got to remember that someone like me, when I grew up in a Catholic school, I think there's actually crypto Jews in there now when I look back at it. And I can even think of one who I think it is. Jamie Bartlett. Yeah, Jamie Bartlett, you horrible, disgusting subversive who works for Demos. But apart from, you know, Jamie Bartlett and his family, I haven't really thought about it too much. But I mean, I obviously was best friends with his mate, his brother Daniel. So that's probably why I was so concerned about the fact he was working for Demos, and how other people were saying that when he was doing these talks, he was twitching his arms around and doing all the Jewish hand signs, that, you know, this sort of weird stuff that the Cameron does and Blair does and all that. All the nasty Jews do that. Yeah, so that's the only reason I became aware of it. But you've got to remember that if you are a Jew, you'll be more used to spotting them. And if you're like from a sort of family of crypto Jews who didn't really want to go along with it, you're going to be even better at spotting all the different ones, because it's not just all about having a big nose, right? So, hopefully that's made my position clear on a few things. This is an extremely serious subject. It's just waiting underneath the surface to come out. I can absolutely feel it. Lots of people are probably coming up with the same conclusion just as I'm talking about it now. So that's my thing, and I think as many people, if you can get any information out about this similar kind of stuff, how they're hiding information about how to do human sacrifices, or basically abusing children, and, you know, using that as a kind of conduit to other dark forces. I think you need to be as vocal as you can about it. Don't worry too much about people around you if you think they're idiots. Put it on the internet, then when people put in the right words, they'll find it. That's the way these Jewish subversive groups all operate, all the communist groups. They boast about things like the Pathways Project being a great success, murdering all these old people in the most horrible, disgusting way by starvation, and how they're extending it to children and babies. They actually will put it up there and boast about it, but they know that most people are never going to find it, so they can do it. This is the exact same. You need to sort of use the enemy's tactics against themselves, because when people are looking out for these scum, right, you've got to remember that they will covertly try and attack you. As soon as they know you know what they're up to, they're going to do it anyway. So you're best off getting it out, and as soon as you get it out, if you're lucky, you might score a jackpot like that Phil Blight being found hung the day after Tim Rogers linked him to the Bridgend hanging epidemic. He was found hanged, so either he killed himself or he's murdered. But that's a goal in the back of the net, isn't it? He was a mage subversive. He was up to all sorts of horrible, disgusting, creepy stuff, and he's found dead. So you've got to remember, these people are cowards. They will never, ever, ever meet you head on, and that's very disturbing, because they'll attack your family members, they'll attack people you know, they'll just go round the houses trying to fuck you over. But don't worry about that, because you can hit them straight on. You know, it's not indirect fire. You can just basically point your gun at them, and once they realise the gun's pointed at them, the rest of their little fucking cabal will take care of them. Don't worry about it. It's all about attacking the enemy. The enemy are in front of you, but they're hiding in amongst us, they're in front of us. Once you see what their tactics are, you start seeing it all the time. Okay, I've been Tom Cahill. It's the 12th of May, 2014. I'd like to hear what you say, even if it's to shoot me down, but please don't just sort of use lots of bad language and not explain yourself, and try and be profound without explaining yourself. The emphasis being on explain yourself. Be as abusive as you like. I don't care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Oh.